From coast to coast and border to border, you're joining us now live with the greatest podcast in the world. And in the rhythm of life, we all go through kind of chaotic times. Listeners, perhaps you're wondering, what is that smell coming from the car? Who is going to cut the grass? Why did I wait so long to sell my house after putting 20 grand to fix it up?
What?
We're going to get the answer to these questions and more on some other podcast, because we're not talking about that today. So we're going a whole nother direction because we have an awesome, amazing, bright star all the way from H-Town. And to introduce him, please make some noise for Diana Gonzalez
Wonderful. So normally I love to do the introductions and all that. So Jason and I are going to actually work in on this because before I pass over and Jason's going to go over the wonderful history and talk about JerMarkus and all the great things that he does and what he did, I just want to thank him for coming on board. And it was such truly a pleasure and it is an honor, truly an honor to have you here. And thank you for all the great work that you do. So with that, I'm going to pass over the mic to Jason. Go ahead, Jason, and work on this.
What's up? What's up? Yeah, everybody knows this is Jason Chico de las Cuevas Mendez, Santiago. Yeah, that's all in fake names. All right, so hey, JerMarkus, how you doing, sir? I'm going to read off your bio, just introduce you to the rest of the world.
Awesome.
JerMarkus Booker graduated from Dillard University in 2014 with a BA in political science. I want to talk to you about political science, by the way, with a minor in public policy, and continued his education to receive a master's in public administration with emphasis on nonprofit management at the University of the District of Columbia in 2018. JerMarkus recently joined Nomi Network. I want to talk to you about that as well. And an international nonprofit organization working tirelessly to combat human trafficking by creating pathways to safe employment. Wow, JerMarkus. By creating pathways to safe employment, empowering women and girls to break cycles of exploitation in their families and communities. Sorry, this is already hitting me. As this senior corporate partnership manager, he is tasked with establishing and managing strategic corporate and community-based partnerships. These partnerships are key to Nomi Network's ability to achieve its goals, objectives, and overall strategy. Thank you, JerMarkus. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Love it. Love it. I really appreciate you guys and just looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. So, first of all, can we talk a little bit about your role with Nomi? Can you, for those that don't know Nomi Network, I mean, you guys do great things. Just talk a little bit about what you do and what Nomi does.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Definitely we'll start off just with Nomi Network. Nomi Network is a 15-year-old global nonprofit organization that got its start out in Cambodia, where instances of human trafficking is super high. And where there are just no resources to support young women, young girls, but also young men and young boys that are there as well. And so our co-founder and founder, Diana Mao and Supay, were definitely just already ingrained in this work, being both women from Asian descent and from also Taiwan and also China are just super aware of this issue plaguing them. And so they sought out to start off this particular organization through a summer internship program, where they were unfortunately met by a young lady by the name of Nomi. At the time was 8 years old. Her dad was attempting to make ends meet, but unfortunately was attempting to sell Nomi to Diana, our CEO, to her male counterpart. And so from there, she wanted to learn why exactly was this man placed in the situation, and unfortunately, why was young Nomi the actual piece of the transaction, right? And so I'll back up and say that 15 years later, they Of course, did some amazing work with supporting tens of thousands of women and young girls in that part of the world, Cambodia and also India, with economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, ensuring that these women had the basic skills to know that they were worth something, that there were other ways to make ends meet. But also there was a cultural situation there where most of these ladies were a part of arranged marriages. And so there was a lot of that we were up against, perhaps, just beyond the political standpoint of this and the economic standpoint of this, but also there's some religious and cultural situations and implications that we had to be challenged by. And so, again, 15 years later, we're here in the United States, in my great home state of Texas, where these instances of human trafficking are actually very high. We're number 2 state in the nation, following California, unfortunately, with the high incidences of trafficking happening between the 45 corridor, that's between Houston and Dallas, Metroplexes. And we are in the fight. This organization is here to support our clients with economic empowerment, where my role comes into play. I am what you would call the connector, the partnership developer, talking to various relationship and stakeholders out here in the great state of Texas. And so businesses, talking to local community members, just got off a call with some elected officials about how could we, number one, bring awareness to this issue, but then where are the resources? Where are the resources to ensure this is something that we are attempting to eradicate, but then also the resources to support those survivors who unfortunately went through this. And so, again, I'm the main connector, meeting with various stakeholders, building and managing strong partnerships with local colleges, businesses that are interested in joining the fight, but then also with those community-based organizations who are also in the fight to support our survivors, perhaps with housing and other areas that we have identified as areas for our survivors. And so I'll stop there, but that's definitely, a good gist of the organization, but also how my role comes into play.
Wow.
Wow. I'm not going to lie, if I did not tear up hearing the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners are also feeling that way. And what you're doing is very, very empowering. Yeah. I did want to go ahead. I know that you were talking about the partnerships and how to build that. What inspires you to do this? Tell me a little bit about that and how do you do those connectors?
Yeah. I'll be honest and say that what inspires me and what definitely keeps me going is my 7-year-old daughter, Olivia. Oh. I cannot even imagine, and I hope this is not drastic, but I just can't imagine. I can't imagine me not being physically here on this earth, and let's just say something like this happened to her. Yeah. And so I felt a deep personal call to action when I honestly came across the job offer, or the job ad on LinkedIn. I felt a personal call to action as a man, as a father, as a human being. I also wanted to lean in on what was this, this modern day slavery they're talking about. I know what that word means and the implications and the history of what slavery means here in the United States. And so I wanted to lean in and figure out, okay, you're saying modern, so something's going on now. And to find that I'm literally sitting in the city and also county that's number 2 in the nation of the United States, my hometown. Oh no, there's something I felt compelled to do. And that was the actual inspiration there. I'll be honest, Nomi, shout out to Nomi Network. They were definitely sending me requests to interview before I applied for the position, just because of my background. And so I was very appreciative of that, but I was also a little apprehensive. I'm like, there's all these scams going on. So I didn't know, honestly, what to... they had to physically call me and we started the conversation from there. And here I am almost a year and a half later. But to getting back to your question for me, Olivia definitely was the inspiration, but I also thought about the countless other young men and women that are out there, unfortunately, who have gone through this, who are going through this, and need that listening ear. I'll be honest and say that, and I'll step back and say that I actually drive Uber part-time, and I've had an opportunity to go through and drive and see what it's looking like on the ground. Beyond what's being told. It's a scary situation out there, where folks are being coerced. But beyond that, there's a barrier there that they're trying to meet. Somebody's trying to make sure somebody eats tonight or keep a roof over their head. So it goes deeper than someone doing this for the thrill. Unfortunately. And so, but I'll just step and say that I've had an opportunity to see this personally. Unfortunately, I haven't had any family members or anyone that I know that has gone through this, for perhaps that I'm aware of, right? Yeah. But I'm thinking about those who've had the courage and shared their story and come in and they came forward. And so inspired by those individuals. And I bring that same inspiration and courage to these board meetings, to anywhere I physically am able to get to. And I attempt to share the stories of the young men and women that we're serving, and sharing how that, if I'm talking to employers, hey, this is an untapped talent pipeline that you haven't considered. These young women and men are talented. They're coming to us with bachelor's and doctorate degrees. And you're wondering what happened, but not only what happened, how can we support? It's our obligation to support. And so I'm excited to bring that into various board rooms and talking to employers, corporate partner organizations to align with our work. And I'll be honest, I don't go in asking for anything. I believe in the power of storytelling. I believe in the power of allowing someone to sit with the data. And let's get real about it. Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever. Let's get real about this issue, this nonpartisan issue. And how can we, not look at this as charity, but come together with actual strategy. So I appreciate that.
Wow.
I love that. I'm not sure. I have so many questions, but I'm not sure if Jason, and I'm going to give some time for Jason and Patrick to ask any questions if they have. But if they don't, I have tons.
Patrick, do you have a question? I do have a little quick story to add to this as well.
Sure.
Okay. So, Dana, I think you remember this. So as I got laid off with this company that me and Diana used to work at, it was January 31st, 2023. And just about 2 months later, as I'm applying, I told myself I wasn't going to be a corporate senior trainer. It was amazing. 4 years, learning, all kinds of, basically learning how to go back to school, basically, But times were getting tough. And I said, you know what, let me just see what's going on as a corporate trainer. And I see Motel 6 is hiring. And I said, oh, cool. I'll be a trainer for Motel 6. I said, I wonder what Motel 6 Corporation. I don't know if you know anything about what I'm about to say. So Diana, and this is when I learned about Diana being a mother of the court. Am I saying that right, Diana?
I'm an advocate for CASA. I'm a CASA advocate.
Okay. Love it.
And so it was just crazy how all these things were coming around. And then I hear my childhood best friend. He's a sergeant here in the Irving Police Department, and he runs his crew and everything. So I'm talking to him. I said, man, I'm just not realizing something. All right. So when I went for my interview, my first one, it said, it's like, hey, Jason, we want to hire you. We understand you do media productions, and we also want to hire you for, the training, to create training modules. And everything was great. It was perfect. And then the last few minutes is like, well, we want to talk to you about something else. I said, what's that? Human trafficking. And I'm like, what just happened here? Where am I? I'm applying for a corporate training job. All I can think about is like shooting videos and testimonies and then putting these training modules together. And so I did do the research. Of course, when you get ready to, get an interview, you want to go into the job, look at it. It's like, okay, so what's going on? Oh, wow. And so everything I'm about to say, I don't remember anymore, but I know it was something like this. the company had went up growth, let's just say 136%. I'm pretty sure I'm exaggerating that, but growth and profit 136, 150%. And then I'm like, wow, why did that happen? I guess because it's 2020. Like, how did all that go up? And so then I'm telling them, it's like, okay, this is great. And then they say, well, we don't own our hotels anymore. We sold them all. I was like, well, that's strange. And I'm not thinking anything about that part other than, okay, so now each person out there is building their hotels. So I'm telling this to my boy Joe, again, the sergeant at the Irving Police Department. And he goes, that's crazy that you're telling me this, because when we would go into the hotel studios, the Hotel 6, Motel 6, we would go in there and issue warrants and arrest people anytime. But all of a sudden there was a mad change where we can't get in anymore. I think, in my opinion, could be a conspiracy that the corporation didn't want anything to do with what was going on. And so they said, hey, y'all can have this. We'll just handle the cleaning crew and the administration in the background, because it was now separate. So in the training, it's supposed to train the cleaning crew how to identify something about human trafficking, like to see that. But there was this growth. So and again, my boy Joe and I were like, who's owning these motels?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the growth, and it just spiked up, he said, as well as what you just said. I was just letting you know.
Yeah, no, that's you mentioned several things, definitely various different topics, right? But I immediately thought about our clients out in Cambodia when I first joined, and also in India. When I first joined the organization, I was brought up to speed about this story where these perpetrators were literally setting up fake job ads, luring these young women and girls out of their villages with the hope of a job opportunity. There have been several instances where our clients, family members of our clients, and you're talking about remote parts of Cambodia and India where you could only get to certain parts of these countries, on foot, by boat. And so you were talking about a trek. We can't get into this, can't catch over the DFW or Love Field or come down to Hobby, and there's no paved concrete road there. And talk about, luring people with the promise of a job opportunity, someone feeling like they got their dignity back, and and so they were luring them to the job interview, the fake job interview. They would get there and find out that this job description is made up. There is no job opportunity, and they're whisked away. Families, unfortunately, in some situations, hadn't heard from their family members for years.
Oh, wow.
And so you talk about that being some of the ways these perpetrators are, attempting to sift out, women and young girls and young boys, but then also the hotel industry here in the United States and what that looks like. And I'm personally, honestly staying away from that industry as in terms of an employer or corporate partner. All money isn't, good money. I'm sure you all have heard that before. And I took a stand on that. When I first joined the organization, there was a talk about in the state of Texas, our Secretary of State has an association called the Texas Businesses Against Trafficking. And these businesses are, like to your point, are supposed to have in their policies and their procedures, anti-trafficking, trauma-informed policies and procedures. And so that's a number one no-brainer for them to sign on. Of course, there are also, resources they're either allocating to this cause. So it's a myriad of different things that meets the criteria for these businesses. But I always cringe when I see these casinos and these hotel industries lean in. And while I appreciate the support, we just have to figure out a way to do this thing in a smart, trauma-informed way, because that's the hotbed. That's exactly where it happened. Jason, I mentioned earlier, I drive Uber, and I will guarantee my parents tried to tell us, not to judge and just go out and do good, right? And I have a hard time with I'm picking up this young lady or young man who's dressed very sketchy. Or perhaps like they are being very precarious, and so I drive them, pick them up at these Motel 6 like establishments. I'm dropping them off at either other Motel 6 establishments or at these random addresses. And typically, it's not their account that's getting them to and from. I had one young lady in my back seat, literally bawling. I could tell this was the situation. I'm trained not to even
get involved in.
You're trained not to get involved, and I'm in my own personal capacity at this point, right? And so I'm driving Uber, I'm minding my business, making some extra money, saving up for my trips, and it's like she's in my back seat bawling, and I could tell immediately. And he's texting me, as you know, on the Uber app. He's saying, being very snappy with me and telling me to get there in a hurry. And is she in the car? I mean, that type of language. And so I'll stop there, but it's definitely getting more and more sophisticated. They are finding various ways to keep this thing and machine running. And if we think about it, I know we're going to get to the economics of all this, but the actual operating revenue of McDonald's, you have Walmart, and you have, I think, a big conglomerate like Gap. Those three together and combined are still not reaching the numbers, this black underground money that's being globally transacted. They're not even able to, tap out and beat this revenue that's being generated all over underground. However, it's happening all around us, and it's getting more and more sophisticated. So don't look for anyone sitting out on a corner dressed in a certain way and looking to make a pitch. No, it's actually in those hotels. It's in those casinos. It's in our malls. Folks are literally in the bathrooms. As you're going to release yourself, they're in bathrooms with other thoughts and plans. And so. Yeah. It's personal. It's these massage parlors. I could go on to how sophisticated this thing is becoming, and it's happening right under us. And we are moving about as if this thing isn't happening. But I could guarantee you, if you're traveling and by car, train, bus, you are sitting next to someone, you are passing someone. In fact, someone maybe has a van full of some folks coming from different parts of our country. And we are thinking like, oh, they're heading to some vacation. And no, unfortunately. But I'll stop there. But I
want to jump in on this. Because this is it's getting me riled up. I was always under the belief that you see something, you say something.
Yeah.
Right? But to hear that, companies like Uber, they deliberately teach, like, don't get involved, which I can understand why when you see the attacks on drivers and stuff.
Yep.
But it's so hard because that just gives power back to the oppressors.
Yeah.
And surely there's got to be a way, like an emergency, like *22 or something, where a driver could put that in and it just alerts someone, because that may be the last time anybody sees that young girl.
That part. Yeah. I'll be honest, I felt like crap, after she got out of my car, and we talked, she and I talked. I was definitely giving her some thoughts like, hey, here's a number you can call. I didn't get offer my name. Of course, the guy had my name, which I kind of abbreviated my name on my Uber app or whatever. But yeah, just taught and trained not to engage. I could definitely make a report. I am aware of where I picked her up and dropped her off. I definitely would like to potentially follow up with the management. But typically, man, they're in on it. They know, they clearly see people walking in their hotel lobbies who didn't reserve a room there. And so you begin to think like, you thought it was a see something, say something, but these folks are mainly about that green dollar. And you are a patron here, and I don't see anything. I'm not saying anything, and we'll move forward, right? Unfortunately,
that is so horrible. Yeah, and I understand all of that. That's horrible.
I would love to have a version, an episode, 2 with us, JerMarkus, because to bring awareness, like what would that list of awareness be to teach the audience? If we can train the audience on our next episode, and then what are the resources? I think we can get the resources here later today.
Yeah, I would love that. We're actually in the midst of building out a trauma-informed training module, a few modules actually, but I would love to come back. I would love to even feature some of my teammates who could really speak to this. I would love for you all to meet our other Diana, who's our CEO. She, amazing. And so, man, it's definitely, would love to do that. Let's definitely schedule that future date. Love that. Bring some folks in. There are other voices that we could definitely lend to this fight. But yeah, would love to.
I do have a question, and I'm so excited because this is going to be a beautiful partnership because aside from our podcasts bringing awareness and bringing this to the audience, to our listeners, what would you recommend? What can people do? As far as when they find themselves in a situation like this, or what can we do to try to combat this? The everyday person that's sitting, driving the Uber, or that's in a fast food restaurant at McDonald's, or what can we do? What would be a
And it's a dangerous job, though, isn't it? Because I would assume the people who are running this goes layers and layers all the way up to you couldn't even believe, who's in control.
Yeah. And that's the scary part. When I mentioned, the operating revenue, there's some transactions that are happening that, definitely need to be tracked. Some folks are, purchasing services at these massage parlors, and you probably would just be amazed. But yeah, there's some layering there, because it's definitely, it's a well-oiled machine. I am honestly thinking about taking like a personal mission and just kind of maybe go see it in other countries. Like, let me see how this thing, how this thing manifests let me actually go over to our India and Cambodia programs. Let me actually go and purchase a hotel down in maybe the red light district. And this might be a little extra. I may need some Secret Service there, but I want to, get boots on the ground is a song that's going on right now, but I definitely want to put the boots on the ground and really immerse myself in this. It's greater than, it's some stories that are being told out there. It's some folks that are definitely that are in plain sight, begging for someone to help them. And so I will say that there are various ways to support, but also to even, there's so many trainings out there to, of course, train like medical professionals to see this, or identify this when someone comes to the hospital. There are different kits for that. Of course, law enforcement. We're hoping to build one out and scale it up for our community-based organization network.
Oh, wow.
And then also share it with our corporate organizations. But various ways, I would say definitely there is a hotline that we always are encouraging individuals to call in. It is the National Human Trafficking Hotline. It's a very long number. It's a 24-hour hotline. Typically, they will say 911. But there is a traffic hotline. I could throw the number out there since we're on 1-888-373 7888. Again, that number is 1-888-373-7888. And that is the National Human Trafficking Hotline, how to report an emergency to law enforcement, or perhaps calling 911. And this is a number where, whether you're a U.S. citizen or not, you're able to call that number and get that support. So which I love it, which they're all eligible for those services and also immigration assistance. And so I love that. Given the current climate that we're in, and the news coming from Washington. But it's an issue that I would even pitch to our current president. How can we lean in? You're talking about stopping folks from coming here and getting folks out. But what about this issue? Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, how could we implore you to champion this issue, not only here in the U.S., but globally?
Yeah.
And we got to respect the space that the United States has. Always don't maybe not agree with our position globally. But I do believe this is an issue that we could get a lot of buy-in on. A lot of folks would love to support this. And so I'll stop there, but definitely I could share also various ways that Nomi Network is in on the fight and how we're getting folks involved. I'm sure we'll go there later, but you tell me. Happy to share.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Before we dive into that, because I really want to hear how Nomi does this, but I want to ask you one question, and this is more on a personal matter for you. What keeps you grounded in this work? I mean, that you're doing, because this is tough. This is tough work.
Yeah.
And what keeps you grounded?
Yeah. I'll say definitely just remembering that several generations before my generation have dealt with issues very similar to this. And so I'm always just grounded in the stories that they've shared. My grandparents were at the center of the civil rights movement here in our country.
Wow.
My grandfather was in Mississippi. My grandmother was in Louisiana. And so two sister states, but were very committed to the degradation of Black people. And so the stories that they would share, their public service, their advocacy, their building strong communities, the reception they got, as, Black people in their community, but also outside of the community it's been very invigorating for me. That wisdom that they often share. Unfortunately, my grandmother is no longer with us, but my grandfather loves to just share his different stories of Dr. King and meeting Dr. King and meeting so many others. Medgar Evers is not too far. Medgar Evers was from Jackson. My grandfather's from a small town called Phoebe, Mississippi. It's actually near Mississippi State. So shout out to the SEC out there. Love some good college football, but I'm grounded in their wisdom that echoes, my grandmother's that echoes to this day. My grandfather is fortunately still with us. And so I love to just always, get his thoughts on different things. But I'm grounded by the work they've done in that generation and how, it's been hard. It's been hard. But as a community, we've always come together. Despite, all of the obstacles that were thrown their way and currently through our way in this current fight. But that's exactly what's grounding me and what's grounded me in this work with integrity, purpose, definitely is why I'm doing this work.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I need to get your grandfather on.
Yeah.
In his story, in his journey.
Yeah.
Now let's circle back to Nomi. Tell me what currently, I know that we're definitely going to have more people come on, but tell me a little bit more. What are they doing, the groundwork into helping these young girls and women? And do you also help boys, men?
Yeah. So, we actually do. It's interesting. That was my initial question when I joined. I'm like, actually, this is not just a gender. This is just no discrimination here. Now, let's see what we can do. And so, no, they were saying, and typically the thought behind it was there were so many, the number of young women and girls, and that just a significant number that the organization wanted to mainly focus when it got started on young women and girls because of just the incidences there across the world, but also definitely here in Texas. But then the data started to just turn, and young men, specifically young Latino and Black young men are, and typically try to do this cross correlation of the LGBTQ plus community and this issue. I mean, we found very high incidences where there were young men who were perhaps, LGBT plus, or perhaps, who were hetero. And there were incidences where across the board. Young men were calling the hotline and seeking services, needing to get rescued and recovered. Had incidences of this happening perhaps to them while in school or at work. And so I wanted the organization to take a hard look at the data and include young men into the mission. We've just got grant funded to lead up this initiative for young men. We're getting our start in Dallas. And so shout out to the Dallas team, but also to Bob's House of Hope. This is also another organization that does this critical work for young men and young boys and men. And so really excited about that. And as a former educator, as a man, I'm excited about facilitating sessions, leaning in and bringing in my resources, perhaps my fraternity into the fold to support this work. Nomi Network is, our mission is definitely to support our clients with a safe and trauma-informed space, first of all, but then also hopefully connecting them with an employer or with resources that shifts their paradigm, right? A lot of our individuals have been in situations, unthinkable situations, and are looking for that second chance. And so but also beyond building and creating pathways to safe employment, we're talking about empowering them perhaps to be an entrepreneur. And so we're connecting with microfund organizations who are teaming up with us to perhaps get entrepreneurship programs going for our clients who maybe would love to charter their own territory there. But definitely about breaking those cycles of exploitation across the board. We go in, and so there are 3 phases to recovery for nationally, globally, for an human trafficking survivor, right? That is rescue, recovery, and reintegration. We shine in the reintegration space for our clients, right? After they've gone through their various phases of healing, we partner with those organizations who do offer the housing, the other supportive services. We team up with them. But our main work is into the workforce development space here in the United States. And so we partner with those local businesses, mom and pop businesses, these huge Fortune 500 companies to scale out various pathways. Before I joined the organization on my first day, they were always talking about jobs, and workforce development and career. But if I'm actually hungry or in need of shelter, I'm not thinking about a resume or cover letter. So how can we scale back? How can we actually listen to our survivors and listen to their actual needs? And we did a listening tour last summer in Houston. And I'll be sure to share more as we do and scale up our programs in Dallas with you all. But the listening tour was pivotal for us. An opportunity for us to sit down and listen in to the experiences, but also the needs of our clients. There was a good number of folks in the room who wanted to go to college. Okay, bet. Let me get on over to our local, community colleges and four-year colleges. Shout out to San Jacinto College here in Houston, and also Dallas College in Dallas are our education partners. Paul Quinn, historically Black college in Dallas, are our education partners. Scaling up this opportunity for our clients who may not be ready for their job opportunity, but are looking to skill up, looking to go into an industry that they never thought was possible. And so we're hoping to launch that first cohort this upcoming fall with some of our clients. And so more to share there, but definitely listening in, right? How could we ensure we're, getting them exactly what they need? A job may not be that opportunity, but for those perhaps who were ready for that job opportunity, we'll scale out various pathways in terms of internships, on-site, tours to these different facilities and headquarter locations, and then also full-time and part-time positions. And so we definitely go in and ensure that these employer partners, these corporate partners are trauma-informed. And so my team and we go in and do maybe a 2 to 3 day training session on trauma-informed, but also about this particular population and how we could, how can you ensure that this workspace and space is trauma-informed? There are perhaps, it could be, and this isn't like saying, oh, well, this group of individuals who are starting, we don't disclose that information. It's more so of a full out awareness campaign, building the buy-in also by the employees, getting them to also volunteer. Of course, maybe not with our clients, but volunteering in other efforts, right? Making hygiene kits for our clients, supporting our donation drives, facilitating workshops around resume or cover letters or how to land that job, right? And so it's various ways that we build out those pathways. And I'm always just grateful when we get somebody to the table that's interested in supporting us in some way, right? And I always mention, hey, this is a first step. While I may have a full target list for you, I'll just keep it very condensed and ensuring that you know that you are standing alongside us in this fight. But let's find out a pathway. Barriers to employment is transportation. How could we maybe go back to Uber and say, hey, you can right this wrong by now partnering with us to ensure a survivor gets to and from their place of employment, but also home on you. Sponsor that. And so shout out to Uber. Hopefully that can happen soon. And Lyft. Let's definitely have a conversation about not only raising awareness of this issue, but reallocating resources back to these same efforts. And so I'll stop there, but that's definitely how we, as an organization, how I've come in and since about a year and just reimagine what corporate engagement looks like in terms of scaling up pathways for economic empowerment for our clients. And so more to share there, but I'm always happy to engage in conversations with potential corporate partners out there and sponsors. But I do appreciate that question, though.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing that.
I want to ask, too, are there any survivors that y'all bring out of that life who then want to go back and become a person who's going to help others be rescued from that life?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And I hope I've heard your question right. I'm sorry. You're asking if there are any survivors perhaps who maybe come back and share stories, experiences, insight.
Share stories, or even go like somebody would say, like, I know the house that they base this out of. Let's go like Liam Neeson on them and get more people out.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, we are well connected with the survivor community here. Several of them always are open and willing to share and lean in and offer their expertise. Typically, as you can imagine, they may have left the life, but there's someone perhaps who's maybe still in the life and is leaning on them for support. And it's various factors. It's not just some folks could think, oh, why don't you just walk away? It's not that easy. Especially when you have these perpetrators who are going through our legal system and marrying you. And so, you got a state like Texas where it's common law is a thing and common law marriage. And, you got the judges sit up there and say, ma'am, this is your husband. What are you talking about? Right. We've seen instances where, she's showing the obvious bruises. There's accounts, there's pictures, there's this. But because of the law, these perpetrators have found a way to weave in and make it, they are legalizing it. But yeah, there's a lot of survivors, community members who come back, support us, lean in. I say this, and I make sure the entire organization knows this, that we can't do what we do without their voices. It is their voice that is another grounding. You asked about what grounds me. It's those voices. It's those stories. From these individuals who could be me, who could be my mom, who could be my sister, who could be any one of us in a situation that we just got ourselves into and unfortunately cannot get out of because of various factors. And they try to play on your insecurities as well. Sometimes also, you just not having a job opportunity or money in the bank. These perpetrators will try to, keep you there for the thought of, what that could do for you. But definitely a lot of good support there between Houston and Dallas with our communities. They lean in with us and they do lead our work.
Wow.
Yeah. And I hope I'm not too long-winded.
No, this is great information, and what you're sharing is so informative.
Yeah, I appreciate
so moving, and it's things that our listeners and even us that we're learning new along the way.
Yeah. And I appreciate this too, because it's honestly giving me an opportunity to kind of step back and say like, whoa, this is it's a lot, but then it's also like, yeah, you're actually you're in this, and it's surreal for me. I'll stop there.
I can feel that, JerMarkus, that you're moving, you're working, and then sometimes like you're in the movement, and then all of a sudden you step back and you're just like, oh yeah, wow, I'm doing all this.
Yeah, it's definitely it's moving for sure.
It's not, so on the phones, you're not, just moving some freight left and right or anything like that. You're doing some things that is creating a movement, literally.
Yeah.
And then the fact that you mentioned common law, they found a loophole to take advantage of that.
That is crazy. That is crazy.
Oh yeah. It's you'd be amazed, man. The stories, folks getting here. We were listening to one of the ladies share that unfortunately her and her son, this guy, they met at a coffee shop in India. He was American. I'm not too sure why he was there. Offered her 10,000 cash in US money. To what was the goal? The initial offer was 50K to get here. I don't think he mentioned marrying her. I think this was an opportunity for her just to get her visa and get here and support her son with better education, and maybe she's also she has a PhD over in had her PhD, and so literally offered her 10K, gave her 10K cash, got the visas for her and her son to get here. Actually got her here at the Bush International Airport. And there she was able to break away. But law enforcement here in the US mentioned and saw that I think apparently he had, they, I guess, apparently married each other in India. So the name switch was already a real thing. And so our law enforcement was like, ma'am, this is your husband. This is your son. And so he was able to kind of coerce that law enforcement officer to release her back into his custody. And so she definitely kept the fight. I think after they got out of the airport into the terminal, she took her son and just started to run. She didn't know where she was going, had no identification, didn't know the language, literally, and just running. And so, fortunately, somebody did listen. Someone did, in fact, support her. She was able to stay on that visa. I'm certain she was attempting to get him locked up, but he's vanished and went off into somewhere. But this was an issue that if that TSA officer did not stop on his or her, can't remember the gender, on their break, she would have been whisked away with him into whatever part of this country, because she got the 10K. She was here. It all was making sense. The promise was the other 40K once they landed here. And so anybody else would think that sounds just sketchy, right? You're apprehensive. You're cautious, not even taking that. You're not even going to place your child in that situation. But you think of, when the mindset, right? When you are in a very, you put yourself up against a wall, right? And there was a quote where someone said, I hope I could get it. Well, they were pretty much saying, when you put a human being in a situation like that, where it's like a life or death, or, you get someone in that space of where they are encouraged to loot, or they have no other choice. You don't know what that person would do. And so we often question like, why this, why that? Well, it's like, no, you haven't been in that situation. And so when you're placed in that, in someone's shoes, what will you do to ensure your family, your being, is safe and secure in some unknown land, right? With the promise of, silver and gold, right? For lack of better terms. But the stories, they're endless. But the impact, the resistance, is there. And I do believe we're on the forefront of building something amazing. And we're getting started in my home state. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about what that looks like.
Really is. It's really exciting. Thank you for sharing that story. I actually, one of my passions, and one of the reasons why I had to have you on here was because I actually was touched by, because I'm a CASA advocate. One of my kiddos was a human trafficked child. This was a young little girl, 10 years old, gave birth to a 1-year-old. And she was trafficked. And so I actually was her advocate, representing her through the court systems and navigating. And the stories that you hear, it's horrific. And so I think it's really important to really highlight that it doesn't matter the age, the gender, where this person is coming from, because this little girl came from Central America, and they brought her through Central America, through Mexico and everything, and the things that she experienced. And they crossed her over pregnant, and she gave birth. And so many people missed the mark. So many people along the way missed the mark on this child and failed her. And there's so many out there. So I think that talking about this is so key important. And so the fact that you talked about this woman that had a PhD, it can literally happen to anyone. It could happen to a woman that is 30 years old, from a young boy that is 5 years old, to a young girl that's 10, or anyone. So that's why it's so critical and so important to have your voice and the voices of Nomi and all these other organizations that are doing great works in doing that. So it is truly great to hear that you are in the fight, and that we're going to be your partner in this.
Definitely.
The one thing that I also wanted, talking about partnership and everything, and I'm sure you've navigated and tried to build partnerships. Has there been any partnership that you found that has been deeply moved or inspired you deeply, that you've encountered, and that you'd like to share that with us? Or it might not have happened yet, or the dream one that you talked about, like Uber.
No. I appreciate it. There have been a few locally here in Houston that have just honestly, there have been days, talk about the title of you guys' podcast. There have just been some days, honestly, where I questioned my why, just personally, but also professionally, and just honestly trying to figure this thing out. You've read off the accolades earlier. While I'm grateful, my mom, a single parent, was able to provide for my sister and I to both go on and, graduate college. And so that's not lost on me. But then I also just think about how I just honestly landed on this conversation with this local business owner here in Houston. And unbeknownst to me, his wife actually owns and operates, she founded a nonprofit organization that supports human trafficking, but on a prevention side. And so she goes into our local school system and facilitates different service projects and, talks and sessions and workshops with students about the prevention of all of this. And so it was a no-brainer for he and I to just, launch this conversation. And I'll mention his name and the company. Shout out to Brett Mears with Palmer Logistics here in the greater Houston area. It is a manufacturing company that's actually statewide, and so nationwide, that they do a lot of great work here. And initially, Brett started off by saying, "Hey, I don't have any money, but I definitely am willing to hire your clients. I am willing to lean in with you to ensure that not only I hire, but my network of buddies who also are business owners in either the oil and gas space, various industries." And so just very moved by how initially he didn't see this as charity work, but a long-term opportunity for him to not only lean in to show his wife that, and because of course he's supporting his wife's organization, but also other efforts, but also just to lean in to show his wife that, hey, I'm not only in this for your sake, but this is a cause that I could support. And this is a new way of him thinking about it. No one actually had ever broached him or approached him about potentially, economic empowerment in terms of, employing our survivors. And so it was ground moving for both he and I. And so we are literally in the early phases of our partnership with that organization, but then also how he's, getting us and connecting us with other business owners in our area, and men and women who own these businesses and are just like you all shocked that this is an issue, but then also asking that question, what could we do? Is this good business sense for us? And I'll be honest, there was some talks about the earlier tariffs, that he had to, his organization, his company, they they work closely with our ship authority here in the city of Houston. And so a lot of contracts on the table. So had to make sense. It was, wondering whether it was a good business move and sense for them. But what I do appreciate is that each of them recommitted themselves to our work. Wow. And are looking for various ways to create pathways. And so that's one partnership that was simply deeply ing for me. It's ongoing. It was an opportunity for me to go in and talk about how we can make a real systemic change through his business, unbeknownst to me, but his business is actually a part of that association I mentioned earlier, headed up by our Secretary General here and Secretary of State here in Texas. I'm butchering that position, but he's all in on reshaping our community, survivor community, and also brought in several other business owners to support that movement. But that's been the one that's just been most near and dear. We've definitely have some support from some of the big names out there. Of course, shout out to Walmart. Shout out to PIMCO. There's also a movement of truckers. Let's talk about also these truck stops. We've mentioned that. We got some truckers against trafficking who are hoping to maybe partner up with us. And so that's also an industry that's definitely not talked about. But there's some movement there. These truck stops across our state. And I love Buc-ee's. I love Travel, what's the Travel Center? Or it's a few of them. Loves, but do know that's also another hub space where some of our young ladies and men have been picked up, and they're riding in these 18-wheelers with these guys and gals and going, pitching rides to other parts of the country. But I'll be that's a partnership that I'm excited that I brought to the organization and I'm currently cultivating.
Didn't even think about that. Wow.
Yep.
That's really it's amazing that you mentioned that. My former employer that I work with, it's a pharmaceutical company, and they transport and they actually have training for that to spot human trafficking.
Yep.
So because they do those long road trips to deliver the prescription drugs, they're out there spotting and educating. They have these training programs for them. So, I mean, you just actually touched in a lot of ways how people can help, how companies can help by that proper training, truckers, all these different ways. And if we can't help donation wise, then we can help by providing jobs.
Yeah.
By providing that. So any companies out there that are wanting to hire, I mean, really look closely at these wonderful candidates that can be put into working society and be productive and all that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm because I've been talking a lot, and I know we're almost at time.
Sure.
Before I go ahead and ask one last final question, I did want to go ahead and see if Patrick or Jason had any questions.
Sure. I have another one, but go ahead, Patrick.
Mine is real quick. Everything you're saying, I think I see the intersection here. So would you say that you have found your purpose and that you're passionate about it?
I can confidently say that I found my purpose.
Oh, wow.
I am excited about it.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, and I get the question. You heard me mention that I was questioning my why. And so, I can confidently say that. You got me over here with chills. I can confidently say that. Although, and I'm not even worried about the future, right? I do believe in a divine power, a higher power, and I know that I'm already taken well care of. And so I won't even worry about the next step from here, but I do believe that this is a lifelong worthy cause. I was in an interview with Diana, and she'll tell you, I started to ask her questions like, okay, let's, what gave you the motivation to start this thing up? Like, I have aspirations to start my own, but if I'm able to, of course, the purpose of a nonprofit organization is not to exist. Actually, you're supposed to meet that goal and meet that service, that you're supposed to close that out and close out and move on to another mission, right? But if I'm able to take this on and run maybe 30, 40 plus more years, then, for her, I do it. And I would also call on my daughter to take up the next 30 or 40 plus years, but I'm hoping that by then this is just history.
Yeah.
But then, I appreciate you for that. I really do, Patrick. And I'll say that, yes. And I do believe everything ahead of me is already taken care of.
That is beautiful. Mic drop. Okay. Dude, kudos.
And my little question, I loved it. I loved hearing the story how Diana and Patrick met. But how did Diana and JerMarkus meet?
Yeah. Diana, I would love to hear your thoughts, and then I'll add in. That I would love to also, and I think I tried. There was so much going on, and I didn't get a chance to even ask you how did I know that it was because of your former colleague at that organization, which is great guy Winston, and so I'd love to. I was asking in real time, and I think I heard you, but also just would love to hear that again.
And I know there was a lot going on that day, and that was the opening of that new location. So, which we're almost out of time, and I want to respect your time, but we'll go into that new location later on another show, another episode.
Sure.
Yeah, I actually, my former employer, I left this company, and I've kept in touch with Winston, and Winston knows that I have a strong passion, in particular with like human trafficking because of my former Casa Kiddo.
Okay.
And because of what I've done with my work with, I'm an advocate for Casa, and my heart melts in any way that I can help people. And so he actually got the invitation from Diana.
Nice.
To come to the opening.
Nice.
Of the office. And so Winston reached out to me and said, hey, Diana, remember we've talked in the past about Nomi, and would you like to come and attend this opening that they're having? And so I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. I'm there. You don't even have to say it. And so I was his guest. And so I attended, and then that's where we met. And so we were just happened to be talking, and we were sharing thoughts, and you asked me, so what organization do you represent, and what brings you here? And I kind of said, well,
starting my pitch.
Yeah, you started your pitch. You were right there. You were just going into it. And I said, well, I used to be with this other company. I mentioned the name, and my friend Winston invited me over. But right now, currently what I'm doing is I have a podcast. And then that's when you were like, whoa, tell me some more. And so we just started talking, and I mentioned to you, I would be interested in maybe talking to someone that maybe would be interested in coming on board. I mean, can you point me to the right direction? You were like, well, you're talking to him. And I was like, all right. And that was, I mean, did I leave anything out?
No, you did not. No, not at all. Not at all.
Stars align. That's perfect.
Yeah. And so just wanted to appreciate you for being there, for answering that call from Winston and being interested in this. And I definitely walked away thinking like, she's definitely going to follow up. And and I loved it. I loved it. But also just, I think that's the beauty of the role that I'm in, but also just me, honestly, not even needing this role. This is me. This is like me, honestly, curious about who's in the room, but also what do we have in common? This is clearly something, right? And just so gracious, Diana, and I appreciate you. I'll be honest and say that typically, folks don't really think that, Black people or Black men are articulate and could represent and could speak and could, there's been some times where, of course, public speaking was a thing, and I do get the intros and the education around that and the art of that. But of course, I just want to say I appreciate you for seeing me. I appreciate you for being there, not only for our clients, but I also felt like I gained a new buddy and friend, and so I'll just stop there and say that.
Awesome, beautiful,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Likewise. I love this partnership. So with that, I'm just going to ask you that last final question, because we are a little bit over, just a little bit over, and out of respect, because I'm sure you probably have tons of meetings.
Sure.
I just wanted you to share your in-between moment, your season of uncertainty and growth, since this is life and in between.
Yeah. There was definitely, I was honestly grappling with this, and I came up with like two, but I'll just go back to my college days. Shout out to Dillard University, the oldest historically Black college in the state of Louisiana.
Wow.
Liberal arts college in the beautiful city of New Orleans. And you all, please get there. And I'll be honest and say that there was a moment where, and I guess you all could see this, I ran for the freshman class president position.
I can see that.
I was elected by my classmates, and just really excited. This service, about, what this new experience would look like, not also just, matriculating through college or through of course, the first year of college, and what that moment meant, right? My classmates trusted me to lead us into our college days, right? And that was definitely short-lived. I partied so much, y'all. I definitely did not attend class, y'all. I was at other social events and forgetting all about that Spanish homework, but that also this other intro to political science work that I had to, this thesis, and dropped the ball. Definitely dropped the ball that first semester and almost flunked out. And I finished that first semester with a 2.3 GPA. I, of course, needed a 2.5 GPA to keep some scholarships going, but also that seat of president. And so I got a call on Christmas break, heading into the spring semester from our dean and Mr. Booker. Unfortunately, we're going to have to, you did not, meet the actual requirements. We're going to have to ask for you to resign from this position, and just better luck, not too sure what your thought, and this is his exact words, right? And so I had to sit with that, a moment of just rejection, but also just a moment of, let's actually focus back in. It's a moment of just clarity for myself of like, hey, you actually were sent here for a whole nother reason. Your mom, your parents, your grandparents have sacrificed so much for you to get here. Let's honor their work, their sacrifice by holding off on any public service, but committing myself back to my work. And that was schoolwork, but that was also just community service work on the weekends, during the week with other organizations. But that was a moment, of course, where I had to stand in front of my entire class, almost 1,000+ students during our seminar, and resign. And some folks were, of course, it was the politicalness of it, y'all. It was politics. Folks wanted to, there was our little student newspaper wanted to know why. And, I went through that first year of my college days, just feeling every way I could feel. But my mother gave me a phone call and got me together and was like, yeah, I actually sent you there to get your learning. You are there to be our next family lawyer. And so hey, let's refocus. And so that was a moment that definitely was a moment of growth, uncertainty, not sure if I wanted to even finish my college days at Dillard and and maybe, just transfer back here to Texas. There was a moment, but no clear roadmap. But I definitely appreciated my mother for the love and the phone call, and also just for the clarity and getting me back focused.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I graduated, definitely finished within the 4 years. Didn't get a chance to run for any other office, but through the work of my fraternity and through the work of AmeriCorps, shout out to AmeriCorps for that. That actually got me into the nonprofit space. And that was actually, I should have brought that up, and we'll come back next time. But definitely a moment of uncertainty, but growth, but transformation. And I bring that into some future sessions, and maybe some sessions that I'm doing with some guys that I mentor now, is that, yeah, you're going to fall. Yeah, you will definitely fall, but how do you get up? How are you going to get yourself up and respond to this in a way that works for you? Yeah, you can take on all of the advice and feedback and insight, but what works for you? And I'm glad I answered that question. And I'll be honest, in certain ways, still answering that question. But I appreciate you, Patrick, because yes, I have found that passion. It's locked in here and just ensuring that community development happens. But also this maybe this is the mission that I'm championing right now, but I'm looking forward to the other missions and other topics that our country has the challenging of addressing. And so I'll stop there and say, hopefully y'all, your guy, I may be the first Black governor of Texas.
There we go.
I'm throwing that out there. We're saying it right now.
Win.
We're saying it right now. The first Black governor of Texas is right here. I'm claiming it, and it was shared on Life in Between.
Yeah.
All right. Governor Booker. All right.
Yes, sir.
No
Yes,
more
sir.
property taxes. No more property taxes.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I appreciate y'all. And this has been an amazing experience for me. Diana, thank you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to meeting both of you in person, Jason and Patrick. My next time, I heard you say Irving. I have a good friend that lives in Las Colinas. And so I am around. Let's do it.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Definitely. So with that, for those that have not subscribed, please come and join us and subscribe. Thank you again for this wonderful guest. And we definitely are going to have him on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass over the mic to Patrick and Jason to let our listeners know where to subscribe.
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, YouTube. We're everywhere. Anywhere you can find a podcast.
I love that tagline. Anywhere you can find a podcast.
Anywhere you can find a podcast. You are welcome to come join our story, join our journey. We want to, eventually we will be live. We'll do a few live sessions and let people come in. So this is great. Thank you so much, JerMarkus.
Yeah, no, thank y'all so much.
JerMarkus, do you have any contact information you want the public?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I would love to definitely encourage some followers on Instagram. My handle is 100 grand. My last name Book, Book. And also on LinkedIn, my first name JerMarkus, last name Booker. Always excited to engage in various conversations, but for the terms of this conversation, anti-human trafficking awareness, any businesses, anybody that's actually working for an organization where you're looking to shift the culture. Let's talk about ways we can engage your employers, your colleagues in on this fight, a worthy cause. And I just appreciate you all so much. I really do. Thank you all so much. First podcast done. I gotta go and celebrate this. I gotta celebrate this. Hey, thank y'all so much again. I'm looking forward to this growing and getting even bigger, and I'm looking forward to always being a partner to you all. I love the title of this podcast. Y'all subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Let's do it. I love it. I appreciate y'all, Diana. Much love to you, my sister, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Thank y'all so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.